So, August 6th, 2025, it started out as a totally normal day at a major U.S. Army base, and then it was shattered by gunfire, putting thousands on high alert. So today, we're going to break down the active shooter incident at Fort Stewart, what happened, how officials responded, and the really crucial questions that are still out there. Okay, let's just dive right into the essentials. So it's a Wednesday morning, and suddenly reports of an active shooter start flying around Fort Stewart, Georgia. And this isn't just any base. It's one of the nation's most important military spots. You know, at the heart of all this, it's about people. 5 soldiers were shot in this attack. They were treated right there on the scene before being rushed over to the Wynn Army Community Hospital for more care. And this is the most critical piece of news from that day. The shooter, who was also a male soldier, was caught. He was taken into custody. And just like that, the immediate danger was over. But of course, that's when the focus really shifted from just stopping the threat to figuring out how on earth this could have happened in the first place. All right, to really get what a big deal this is, you gotta understand the place where it all went down. I mean, we're not talking about some small outpost here. Fort Stewart is huge. It's a massive, sprawling hub for the Army. We're talking an area bigger than New York City. It's home to the famous 3rd Infantry Division, and really, it's its own little city with soldiers, their families, and a ton of civilian workers. Now, the shooting itself didn't happen all over the base. It was isolated to one specific area, the home of the 2nd Armored Brigade Combat Team. And this is pretty significant. They're a tank unit, and they had just gotten back from a major deployment over in Europe during the summer of 2024.
Okay, so how did this all play out? And maybe more importantly, how did they get a handle on a threat on such a massive base so incredibly fast?
The response here was honestly lightning fast. Look at this timeline. The first call comes in at 10:56 a.m. Just 8 minutes later, the entire base is on full lockdown. And get this, only 39 minutes after that first call, they had the suspect in custody. That kind of speed doesn't just happen by accident. It's a direct result of all that intense, rigorous, active shooter training the military drills for over and over again. But, you know, something like this, it's never just contained to the base. The impact, it just ripples out, you know? It hits the entire community, and it happens in minutes. So the second Fort Stewart and its airfields went into full lockdown, it sent this wave of caution through the whole area. Think about it, at least 6 local schools had to go into a soft lockdown. Doors locked, nobody moving around. And to make it even more intense, for a lot of kids in Liberty County, this was their very first day of the new school year. And you can just imagine the anxiety for families. It became so real, so personal. This post on social media from a grandmother really says it all. Fort Stewart is in lockdown. My granddaughter is there. Pray for all. I mean, that just captures that feeling of dread and helplessness so many people were feeling, with loved ones stuck behind those gates.
Well, as you'd expect, an incident like this triggers a massive response. We're talking multiple levels here, drawing attention from leaders right there in Georgia all the way up to the White House.
Right away in Georgia, Governor Brian Kemp was on it. He was one of the first to come out with a statement confirming he was talking with law enforcement and, of course, sending support to the victims. And that concern we saw at the state level, it was matched almost immediately on the national stage. I mean, this news traveled fast. The White House came out and confirmed that the president had been briefed on the situation. And that right there, that tells you the national significance of an attack happening on a U.S. military base. And back in D.C., Georgia's own people were weighing in. And what you saw was this bipartisan wave of concern. It was echoed all across Georgia's congressional delegation. We heard from Senator Raphael Warnock and Representatives Buddy Carter and Mike Collins. A lot of people were watching this very, very closely. Okay, so once the immediate threat was over, a totally different kind of response kicked into gear. A massive multi-agency investigation got started. You've got the Army's own Criminal Investigation Division, or CID, leading the charge, but with full backup from the FBI, the ATF, and even local police. Their job now, figure out exactly what happened and why.
So as the dust starts to settle and the investigation ramps up, we're left with this picture. And it's strange, because some parts of it are crystal clear, and other parts are just completely murky.
All right, so let's break down what we know versus what we don't. We know the what. 5 soldiers were hurt. We know the suspect is another soldier. And we know the response was incredibly fast. But all the critical pieces are still missing. The identity of the shooter, the conditions of the victims, none of that has been released. And most importantly, we don't have a motive. And that big question, the why, it's not just the key to this investigation. It puts this whole event into a really, really troubling context. See, this shooting didn't just happen out of the blue. It's actually part of a deeply disturbing pattern of violence that happens on supposedly secure U.S. military bases. You just have to look back at Fort Hood in 2009 or the Washington Navy Yard in 2013. And even more to the point, this was the second fatal shooting right there at Fort Stewart in just a few years. There was another soldier-on-soldier killing in the very same brigade's area back in December of 2022. When you look at that history, it forces us to ask a really tough question. And it's one that goes way beyond just this one tragedy. In places that are literally built to be the most secure facilities on Earth, how do you protect the people inside from a threat that might already be there, from within their own ranks?